Unfortunately, the reality is for many of us, if we don't break this cycle, the weight will always come back. We'll always be white knuckling our way through. If you've ever wondered how people can lose a lot of weight and keep it off naturally for a long period of time, you need to watch this video because this is where true freedom is found. And it's actually not as hard as you might think. That little voice that shows up when you've eaten something that you promised yourself you wouldn't, the voice that says, well, you've blown it now. You've blown the diet. You may as well start again tomorrow and keep eating. And so you eat the chocolate or the chips or whatever it is that started the whole cycle in the first place. And if you're anything like me, you'd justify having even more because now you're on a timeline. You've only got tonight because you're starting over tomorrow. So you better get as much in as you possibly can before tomorrow comes. And then we go to bed feeling physically sick from eating too much and so utterly out of control, hopeless, and feeling guilty. And then the next morning when we wake up, we start it all over again. You feel overwhelmed. You're stricter, harder on yourself. You tell yourself, this time I'll stick to the diet. And then inevitably, pretty soon, something happens, you slip up and you fall back into the same cycle all over again. This was my cycle for 10 long years. I know exactly how that all feels. And for years, I thought I had no willpower. I thought I had a self-discipline problem. I thought I just really liked food. If you're new here, my name's Gina. I am a qualified nutritionist for 20 years now, but I actually became a nutritionist because I was a binge eater and very overweight. So I studied nutrition to actually help myself to lose weight. I lost 41 kilograms, which is about 90 pounds, 22 years ago now, and I kept that weight off for the following 15 years. Tell me in the comments, do you recognize this cycle in yourself? Okay, so I'm going to share how I finally broke this cycle, and hopefully, if this resonates with you, it will help you as well. So the first thing that we need to understand is this is not a willpower problem. As it turns out, feeling ashamed or embarrassed is scientifically proven to make us eat more. And once we understand this, the whole cycle finally makes sense. So let's start with the research. This is actually documented science. A review, which was published in 2024, analysed all of the existing research on weight stigma and disordered eating. Yes, I know, that's alarming if you have never considered that this is a disorder, but the professionals consider this a disorder. So they found internalised weight stigma was significantly and consistently linked to binge eating across multiple studies. So in plain English, the more you feel ashamed of yourself about your body or the way that you eat, the more likely you are to binge eat. And I know for me, that was certainly true. A separate review, which was published in 2022, confirmed that weight stigma and specifically the shame that comes with being overweight and internalizing that is directly linked to increased emotional eating in the absence of hunger and long-term weight gain. So this is how that works. When you feel ashamed, when you lie in bed replaying what you ate, when you look in the mirror and you feel disgusted in yourself maybe, when someone makes a comment about your weight, all of these things sends your body a signal that there is a threat, right? And it responds exactly the same way as it would to any threat. Imagine a tiger is chasing us. It releases cortisol, our stress hormone. And in a 2024 comprehensive review, they confirmed that chronic exposure to elevated cortisol is directly linked to obesity development. So here's the mechanism. Cortisol spikes your blood sugar to give you quick energy. Your body thinks that you need to run from something, right? So your body gives you the quick energy that you might need to take off. When you don't burn that energy off, insulin moves in and shuttles that excess glucose directly into fat storage. Because remember, insulin is a fat storing hormone. And it shuttles that energy specifically into visceral fat, which is the fat that sits around our organs. It's the unhealthy, dangerous fat. So shame literally triggers cortisol. Cortisol spikes blood sugar triggers insulin stores fat. And then your stressed brain screams at you for more fuel because now you have low blood sugar, creating intense cravings for high sugar, high fat comfort foods. So you eat these foods, you feel ashamed, cortisol spikes again, and that is the cycle in action. So you see, it's not a character flaw. It is a hormonal loop, and it will keep running until something interrupts it. There's one more layer here that we need to talk about that makes it even harder to escape. The same research, which I spoke about earlier, found that people who experience high levels of weight stigma over a long period develop what's called blunted cortisol response, meaning their stress system is so chronically activated and elevated that it stops responding normally, which sounds like it might be better, right? But it's actually worse because blunted cortisol is associated with sustained elevated baseline levels, disordered eating, and long-term metabolic dysfunction. And look, I spent a really long time in this cycle not understanding why I could be completely disciplined for a couple of weeks and then one moment would have everything unravel for me. And I'm sure I'm not alone. This is very normal. And then the shame or disappointment of unraveling would make it all worse. I counted calories for a year to lose 41 kilos, and it worked eventually. But it's not the only thing I did. What actually changed things for me was understanding my metabolism and my mind. Because once I understood these things, I stopped fighting myself and I started making real progress. Feeling low-grade shame or unworthiness or just not really liking myself was the main trigger for my binge eating. But I didn't really understand it until I stopped binging. And that's the hardest part. It's stopping, cutting yourself off so you can actually feel what's going on underneath. Because the truth is, I couldn't really feel anything while I was eating away my feelings, which is what I did all the time. And that's what I want for you, to not just get the information, but I want you to get an actual shift in how you see yourself. I have a private membership where I show you exactly how to solve this problem. If any of this resonates with you, we focus on metabolism and mindset, and specifically retraining your mind so that you can be free of the emotional torture and keep the weight off naturally. Anyway, if that sounds good to you, you can watch the video to find out more. I will pop it in the description below. So how do you actually break this cycle? Not just understand it, but actually break it. The first thing is the hardest thing. You have to stop treating shame as a motivational tool. And I know that might sound strange, but a lot of people do that. Somewhere subconsciously, we sometimes feel like if we're harder on ourselves, that we will do better. But it's actually the opposite. And the diet industry has told us for decades that feeling bad about ourselves will make us try harder, right? The research says the exact opposite. So a 2025 study published in the Journal of Eating Disorders found that self-compassion, not self-criticism, was what actually reduced binge eating and broke the shame cycle in clinical populations. So self-compassion is not letting yourself off the hook per se. Self-compassion is recognizing that what happened last night was a biological response to stress or emotion, not a character failure. It's not a character flaw. And that you are still the same person who wants to be healthy and is actively working toward it. The moment after you've eaten something that you told yourself you wouldn't, that is the most important moment. What you say to yourself in that moment determines whether the cycle continues or it stops. It's not really about what you eat tomorrow, not how hard you are on yourself for the next week. That moment right there, instead of, I've already ruined today, I may as well finish it like I used to do. It could be, well, that happened. I was stressed out and I did that for these reasons and I'm okay. And you could implement some other tools too, like going for a walk and taking some deep breaths and centering yourself. The biggest thing that got me through for my journey was not wanting to hurt myself anymore. That's something that connected a little while in. The more I spoke to myself with compassion and the more I treated myself well, and I demanded it from other people around me as well, the more I wanted to actually give myself something better. I wanted to feel proud of myself and in control of my own life. And somewhere along the line, that became a much stronger feeling than the need to eat to push down negative feelings, because I realized I was stuffing down negative feelings about myself. And as it turns out, I'm not alone. And look, it did take practice. It was really one day at a time for quite a long time. The second thing is to address what's driving the stress response in the first place. Cortisol is the engine of the cycle. We need to pay attention to our stress levels, which can be emotional, physical, and even metabolic. So looking at things like sleep, nutrient intake, blood sugar stability, movement that you actually enjoy, These are all ways to manage cortisol. When your blood sugar is stable, cortisol has less reason to spike. And when you're sleeping well, your neurotransmitters regulate normally. When you're moving your body in ways that feel good rather than punishing to lose weight, you reduce the stress rather than actually adding to it. The third thing, and this is one that changes everything long term, is to stop starting over. Every time we declare that today is the day and yesterday doesn't count and we reset the shame cycle all over again. It really is just about today, right now. Our power is found in this moment. That's where we have total control. When I was losing my 90 pounds all those years ago, this really clicked in my mind that I only really had power in this very moment. And it really did change everything. I actually printed out a poster, which I made myself, and framed it and put it up on the wall. That poster hung right above my TV, which read, "Every choice I make today changes my future." And I used to remind myself often that every single choice and every single action I made right now in this moment was shaping the life that I would live tomorrow. That little mindset shift gave me the control I desperately needed at the time because it took the focus off the past and I wasn't thinking about later. It brought me back to this very moment, which is the most important moment. Breaking this cycle properly, not just understanding it, but actually rewiring the patterns around it, is exactly why my private membership was built. Because the shame cycle isn't just psychological, it has a metabolic component as well. It's about insulin resistance, chronic cortisol elevation, disrupted hunger hormones. All of these things need to be addressed alongside the emotional patterns. We really do need to focus on both our mind and our body to have a major shift for long-term weight loss and long-term good health. If that all resonates with you, watch the video about my private membership next. I will pop the link in the description for you if you're interested, and I will see you in
Smarter Nut Nutrition.